comprehensive plan public hearing is now in session. Everybody that's planning on giving testimony or comments, would you please rise to be sworn in?
Raise your right hand for me. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give here today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So say it, I do.
I do.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we'll start with some presentation from Jamie.
Yep. Yep.
That's all right, I'm walking. Oops, sorry. That's good.
So, members of the board, members of the planning commission, members of the public, I have a short presentation. My name is Joanne Shelley. I'm a planner with LSSE, certified planner, and I have a short presentation for you just regarding what the Pennsylvania Municipal Planning Code states about a comprehensive plan, the process, and the content. So the Municipal Planning Code identified comprehensive plans in 1968 with Act 247, Article 3, and stated that a review is required every 10 years. Typically it follows the decennial census and should include community surveys, so public input, physiographic mapping, essentially geography and geology and water studies and analysis of the demographic data and land use and economic development. So data that is in your comprehensive plan is collected from the census. The MRLC collects land data. NOAA is your temperature, weather, atmospheric conditions, and of course, information is provided by the Department of Agriculture, Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, Department of Environmental Protection, and the Department of Transportation. Some of these resources actually come from Penn State and joint research studies, but they're produced and published under the Pennsylvania departments. And then, of course, resident surveys. So what data is required? The MPC has specific code language, and the information listed here is what's required, and you'll notice that it essentially follows the sections that are in the your comprehensive plan, but housing, the demographic data, again, educational resources, this includes the local school district, but also regional education, colleges, universities, trade schools, etc. What are the economic characteristics? What is the general salaries? How do people make a living? What type of industry is in the area? What are the land uses? What is the transportation available? What community facilities are available? And then looking at the natural landscape, the historic landscape, and cultural resources. And then it also requires that there's an analysis of prospects for growth. So these are requirements in the MPC stated specifically. The elements of the comprehensive plan, in addition to the data, require a statement of objectives. What does the community want for its future? A plan for land use. Typically, this is your zoning map. A plan for housing needs. So not just what houses are here, but what do you need in the future? Plan for movement of people and goods. So what is the transportation? In your community, it's 99% personal vehicles. So that is the transportation, is your roads. Plan for community facilities, including educational sessions, recreational, municipal buildings, your fire, police, your libraries. And then community facilities also includes your utilities. Again, your sewage and waste treatment, your solid waste management, stormwater management, water, floodplain management, and utility corridors as well. Plans for protection of natural and historic resources, relationships among these components, and then the plan also requires that there be short and long-range plans for implementation strategies, whether that's protecting natural resources or managing where development occurs. The last part states that the existing and proposed development needs to be compatible with neighboring municipalities, and you'll notice later that the plan is shared with these entities in order for them to agree that it is compatible. And why do you do a capital or a comprehensive plan? A, it's required by the state. Also, it allows the community to look and forecast what it needs for capital improvements and manage its resources and budget. Housing needs assessment, understanding how the housing needs in your community may change or need to be analyzed and understood for future. Sustainability and resiliency in your community. Additionally, there are some additional studies that may happen in communities, such as the Act 537 plan, which looks at utility services. If the community wants to assess traffic impact fees, create a parks and recreation master plan, or do parkland dedication, along with those conservation and preservation easements, grant applications for federal and state and county funding. All need the backdrop of the comprehensive plan to create a baseline for these assessments and applications. Additionally, individual property owners may want to apply for a conservation easement or development application. And the comprehensive plan helps them understand where and where they cannot develop. And it also helps them when they apply to specifically, I'm thinking about the state has many options for agricultural conservation easements and grants, and the comprehensive plan helps bolster those applications and provide the state with the data that an individual property owner may not be able to acquire on their own. Lastly, I just wanted to point out that the adoption of the comprehensive plan must hold at least one public meeting for adoption prior to adoption. Request the comments from the county, contiguous municipalities, and the school district, as well as public meeting comments, and recommendations from the municipal planning agency. Within 45 days of receipt, the governing body needs to act. If there are no responses within those 45 days, the governing body may proceed without comment from the adjacent municipalities and school district. So we have held at least one public meeting. We've held several public meetings because we discussed these in the planning commission, in the context of the planning commission meetings, which are public meetings. Additionally, we held several workshops and completed the community survey, all of which qualify as outreach to the community. Just to give you an idea of the process, back in August of 2022, the Planning Commission started to talk about updating the comprehensive plan. And we went through the process of developing a modified survey from the previous survey, and then distributing the survey and collecting data. We held stakeholder workshops, and during those stakeholder workshops, LSSC prepared a draft that included the data that was required to be collected, and we gave the stakeholders the opportunity to look at the data and comment on it. And then the data, the comments were collected into the implementation, the citizen participation and implementation sections. All of the information that was collected, every survey, every response was scanned, so there is a digital trail for every single survey that was collected, for every response that happened in the community workshop is available, both in hard copy or in a digital format. And the Planning Commission recommended approval. The Planning Commission can only recommend approval. They do not have any sort of decision-making authority. They only recommend to the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors recommended forwarding to the county, municipalities, and school districts in April. There was a 45-day response deadline. That was July 6th. And then the public hearing is being held today. Following the public hearing and during the public hearing, following the public hearing, where the community can comment, the Board of Supervisors will, at a future meeting, make a decision about adopting the survey, asking for edits, and moving forward. That's all I have. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Did any of the surrounding communities respond to the school? No responses.
No responses. I would say that there were no responses, but I would encourage Sewickley Township in the next 10 years before the next update to take a more proactive approach to requesting feedback and requesting input, so that it's not a 1-year process or truthfully a 2-year process, but if it's a 10-year process. The demographic data, the data that I listed in the first slide, should be updated after the Decennial census, but community input about objectives and preservation and conservation and housing should be something that best planning practices are that you continue that process throughout the 10 years leading up to the next iteration. And I would encourage you to consider that as you move forward, is create an ongoing process of reaching out to the community and having workshops and hearing what they have to say, so that it is not a surprise to people, or they feel like they may not have had a chance to comment sufficiently. That would be my recommendation moving forward. Thank you.
Send the recommendation to Mr. Mayor.
No, but I can certainly put it in a letter to you all.
Joanne,
Yes, sir.
I just see RLA, AICP, LEED.
Sir, I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
I said, I'm looking at her credentials, RLA, AICP, LEED, BD plus C, it says, what does that mean?
So RLA.
I'm not checking your
I know.
qualifications, but it might.
For the public, yep.
Yes, for the public, no, you're just not.
Off the street, right. So RLA means that I'm a registered landscape architect. I've been a registered landscape architect since 1994. And that means that every year since I've become registered, I'm required to do continuing education that maintains my credentials, my license. I'm licensed in Michigan and Pennsylvania, and that I keep up on the most current research, studies, and best practices. I can tell you, as an example for registered landscape architect, when I graduated from college, the plants chosen for landscapes were of a certain plant palette. And in the last 20 years, it's been identified and addressed that those plants are actually mostly invasives and that we need to turn to natives. So the last 5 years, I've spent a lot of time learning how to design with native landscapes in the areas where I practice. So that's one reason that we do continuing education and we talk about best practices. AICP is the American Institute of Certified Planners. The American Planning Association is the underlying body, and I have a certification from them where I took an exam. And again, I maintain 30 credits every 2 years of continuing education in order to maintain my license and my certification. And the license involves studying planning code, also best practices, but also ethics with regards to how you develop community engagement. And I will tell you that the AICP is very strict when it comes to ethics and does not tolerate unethical behavior at any level. The lead BD plus C is leadership in engineering and environmental design. BD and C was, I'm sorry, I've been a certified planner since 2010. The lead BD and C received that accreditation, I gained that accreditation in 2003, and it pertains to the built environment and buildings and sites being designed and built so that they respect the environment and create spaces for people that do not need to be sick and that help our environment heal itself from interventions. At the time, BD&C was the only accreditation. There's now sustainable sites, of which I am also proficient. You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board? All right, this time we're opening up to public comment. Please, when you rise, give your name, your address, keep your comments to 3 minutes, and please try not to repeat what other people have said. This time we'll take public comment.
I'll stand up. Hello, everyone. My name's Alex Meter, 1782 Pine Run Road. I've been a township resident for 36 years. My family's been here for over 100 years in the township. First, I want to thank everyone just for your service to the community. I appreciate everyone showing up too. I think it's important to have community feedback and interaction with our community leaders, our trusted servants, etc. Joanne, thank you for the presentation. Definitely like the portion on native plants. I just wanted to bring up some things in the plan that I would maybe call deficiencies, particularly to conservation. I'll just say this, that conservation starts before you develop, not after. It's really hard to practice conservation when all the land is scooped up for development. It really is. That needs to go into your long-term plan. You have to have a vision for that. And one of the statutory requirements in 1-2, Section 9, a plan for the protection of natural and historic resources. So I've seen there are resources for individual landowners, links, but I don't see an actual plan. When I hear a plan, I need to see a document. What does that plan mean? What areas are we targeting for conservation? There's plenty of historic buildings in town. One of the ones that should be considered that was in the county plan was the Big Knob. I don't know about you, but that being the high point of Beaver County, there's a geological marker. What if there was a giant housing development on that, looking down at all the other residents in New Sewickley? I think that's would be an area of conservation. Also, Brush Creek. There's a mussel population that's endangered in there. There needs to be plans that go in before we start developing to protect those areas. There's a mission to protect open space, subdivision of land development, ordinance, SALDO, preserve open space. It talks about cluster development and floating zones, overlay zones, incentive zones, development models. Nothing in here. These are just guidelines. There's no mandates. There's no shall. So basically, we're saying these are what you could do, but we're not mandating you to do anything. Just sort of do whatever you feel you need to do. So I think there needs to be some sort of mandate as far as the development on the actual models that fit the zoning. I will point out that the conditional use, all the map on the screen, all that green, basically allows for that prime farmland to become development with that conditional use. It's a loophole. So I would argue that zoning needs to be changed to actually reflect what it's going to be used for. And it appears the direction we're going is for housing developments. So why not zone that, a neighborhood district or, so those are really not reflective of, the zoning. At least I don't think. For that conditional use, it would allow a lot of these properties to be used for developments. And I think we talked about the survey results. It says not cranberry and developers, and there's in the implementation it says number 1, keep New Sewickley rural, minimize the loss of agricultural lands, and preserve open space. So, I think we really have to consider the feedback of our constituents to how are we going to minimize the loss of agricultural lands at a township level and preserve open space. How we define what open space is that lawn, turf grass that looks like a golf course, or these wildflower meadows, natural areas, woodlands, whatever it is, and then protect the environment. I think we can do all that and still have development in New Sewickley. I would just urge this committee not to move forward until we have a plan for targeted conservation before we just allow development in the township, because it will create a landscape effect. And if you don't want it to be cranberry, there's a couple parks that are available to the public in Cranberry. It's mostly housing developments. Do something now for conservation. Don't wait till it's too late, till the next 10-year plan. It'll be too late by then. So I would just say everyone here, I think, has maybe a different opinion. I'm not necessarily for or against development. I just think it can happen in a responsible way that takes into the feedback of its community members. And certainly those survey results, it says keep New Sewickley's rural appeal, our woods, our meadows, our farms, our waterways. That's what keeps it rural. Thank you. And another thing too, I put together just a short slideshow. I just want to present this as evidence. We don't have to review the slideshow, but I just want to present this as evidence. So how would I go about doing that?
You can hand it to me.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
My name's Katie Conadera, 1161 Freedom Crater Road.
Ma'am, I'm having trouble hearing you. You need to speak up.
Sorry. My name is Kaylin Conadera, 1161 Freedom Crater Road. I was born and raised here. My family's been farming here since the 1800s. And I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in community development. So I care a lot about this, and I care a lot about the township. My chief concern with the plan, and I really enjoyed reading through it, and I've read the other one too, like from last 10 years ago, is about enforcement, because there is, as the gentleman who went before me kind of talked about, there's a lot in here about keeping New Sewickley rural, a lot about how people don't want to see a lot of really dense development, but there's also a lot about how we do need more housing in New Sewickley, and we need housing that is affordable to families, especially young families. My concern is that we have zoning regulations already that are meant to keep dense development from happening in the township in the wrong places. The problem is our planning board keeps overriding it. So we need to have some sort of enforcement or accountability. What's the use of making a community plan or any sort of plan I'm sorry. What's the point of having a plan if we're not going to actually use it? We've heard from community members that they want responsible development, and I would really love to see that here. I would love to own my own home here one day, but the way the township's going, I can't afford a $500,000 house stuffed in a bunch of other $500,000 houses. Thank you.
I'm juggling, so if you don't mind, I'll use the podium. Good evening, board, staff, and fellow residents. Thank you for the thorough time you have taken over the last 2 years to develop this comprehensive plan. I was a stakeholder during the process. I attended public meetings with the Planning Commission as well as workshop sessions. I will respectfully ask the board continue this hearing until a later date. Under Pennsylvania Statute 53, Section 10302A, the comments of the county, contiguous municipalities, and the local school districts shall be made to the governing body within 45 days of receipt of the governing body, as we heard Ms. Shelley testify. The proposed plan or amendment thereto shall not be acted upon until such comment by the county is received. The statute reads plainly that the county's comments are required for the comprehensive plan to be acted upon. And it is therefore requested this hearing be continued until such comments have been received and publicly made available in advance of the continuation date of this hearing.
Keep going.
Will the board consider continuation of this hearing, please?
If you're looking for legal advice, the 45-day deadline has passed since we submitted it to the county, and you don't have to wait to hear back. You might not ever hear back from the county. So once the 45-day deadline has passed, you are able to hold a hearing.
The second part of that statute reads that if the county or municipalities or school districts fail to respond within 45 days, the Board of Supervisors has the right to make a decision without their response. So I think we should be clear that there's an entire statute, not just read the first part of it.
I will pose a legal challenge. It does say that if the contiguous municipalities and local school district do not respond, the decision of the board may be acted upon. However, it clearly does not state the county's response. I have been advised under legal counsel that the county's response is required for the board to adopt this.
So you don't need to continue the hearing. Even if you did, you can take this under advisement, but even if you did want to wait for the county response, you're not taking any action this evening on the plan that would, do any harm if you wanted to wait for the county's response. You're just getting public input at this point. But again, I agree with Ms. Shelley that the 45-day deadline has run and you're able to hold your hearing with or without public, or with or without county comment at that point.
We're going to continue the hearing.
To a later date?
No. We're going to continue it tonight.
Okay.
And we're not going to act on anything until the next meeting anyway. So we'll take your comments under advisement and proceed.
Okay, thank you. This proposed 2023 comprehensive plan update has numerous inconsistencies and deficiencies, which I will attempt to list in a timely manner for the record. I would also request this comment letter to be admitted as evidence. Under the Municipalities Planning Code 1968, Act 247, Article 3, as a whole, but more specifically Section 301C, the proposed plan shall be consistent with the county's comprehensive plan. However, the current Beaver County Comprehensive Plan identifies a rural resource area to which this proposed plan updated has eliminated in its entirety. This is just one of the numerous inconsistencies between the 2023 New Sewickley Comprehensive Plan Update and the Beaver County Comprehensive Plan. The Municipal Comprehensive Plan shall receive county comments to indicate where the local plan may deviate from the County Comprehensive Plan, to which this comment letter has not been received to date, or submitted by evidence on the record for the duration of this hearing. Furthermore, Section 301B, the comprehensive plan shall include a plan for the reliable supply of water. Considering the current and future water resources availability, uses, and limitations, including provisions adequate to protect water supply sources, to which this proposed update response, the New Sewickley Township Municipal Authority is currently undertaking a water service study. That's a quote from your plan. The current water study is not a plan per the state legislature requirements. We do not have a water plan in place in the plan that you are proposing to adopt. Furthermore, Section 3016, a plan for the protection of natural and historic resources, is not included in this proposed update, as verified by the state or federal historic standards. As such, the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code calls on counties and municipalities to include provisions for preserving historic places and archaeological sites in their comprehensive plans and zoning. To help local governments fulfill this responsibility, the Pennsylvania State Historic Preservation Office, SHPO, has developed its guidance for historic preservation planning. Recommendation steps towards developing an effective comprehensive historic plan are included. Furthermore, citizen participation and response rate. This is Section 3012. Surveys by planning agencies. In preparation of the comprehensive plan, the planning agency shall make careful surveys. Obviously, the importance of citizen participation cannot be overstated. The plan ultimately belongs to the people who live in New Sewickley Township. This plan was developed in part through limited response from community members. A resounding number of residents have stated they never received a copy of the survey. A whopping $50,000 was spent on the update, and you received 12% response. As a board, you have heard it stated numerous times over the last 2 years and throughout the response period that people did not receive surveys. It asked that a second round of mailers be sent out, that greater community outreach efforts be made. This is a violation of the residents' rights, and adopting a plan with limited response is therefore in opposition to the voices of community members who played a role in its formation. Is this plan for our people or for whoever may be profiting from the land? Zoning. You heard some mention of the zoning. As you're aware, the township was rezoned in 2017. This rezoning removed 6,677 acres, or a total of 44% of agricultural zoning within the township. Under the old zoning, A1 district, agricultural consisted of 15,255 acres. The rezoning, RA, was delineated as rural agriculture. It is now listed as residential agriculture on our zoning map, which includes 8,578 acres. Note how many people in their responses wrote their love for the rural character and community of New Sewickley Township, not Cranberry or overdevelopment. Concerns multiple times were stated in responses. This is a resounding sentiment to the 2013 comprehensive plan. Are we listening to what our residents are saying? If so, over the last 10 years and during the next 10-year period, I would expect to have a formal plan for implementation for agricultural land preservation, conservation, and protection of our rural resource area, and a plan that is actively being utilized. Basically, New Sewickley will only remain competitive if it continues to protect what attracts people to it, its affordability and rural character. I think this is a really important point. If we don't protect our rurality, what assets will we even have anymore? Finally, housing. As you saw in the responses, New Sewickley residents are not necessarily anti-development. There is a need for housing, but a desire for the housing to reflect the current characteristics of the township, while being targeted to designated growth areas. Furthermore, I believe rural gentrification is a serious issue in New Sewickley and needs to be very careful about developing to the point where people who live here and love this community and those whose families have lived here for generations are not displaced and forced out. Thank you for your time this evening. Protect our rural resource area. This needs to be reinstated in the plan.
Any comments?
Ma'am, I did not get your name.
Sorry. Laura Dengel, Dengel.
Thank you.
Do you know my address? 425 Klein Road.
Two items that should be comments. The first is that the comprehensive plan is a document that allows and provides the data and information for the Board of Supervisors, which is the decision-making body in this township, to make decisions. The Planning Commission makes recommendations, the Board of Supervisors makes decisions, and I think it needs to be very clear that the comprehensive plan is a document provided to the Board of Supervisors to make decisions about policies, objectives, and then how to implement those policies and objectives. The implementation section of the comprehensive plan outlines the policies that were established in 2013 and updates the objectives based on the community's comments. But again, it's very important that we not confuse who makes decisions in the township with who makes recommendations. And this document is a resource for you to make decisions. It's not a directive on how you make decisions or what different decisions you make. It's only a resource for you all as the Board of Supervisors to make those decisions.
So I don't mean to interrupt, but I do think that's a helpful point that you're making, and I think this board understands, and I know our planning commission members do, but just for the public's benefit, the comprehensive plan is a planning guidance document. It is not binding. So it's not accomplishing any sort of rezoning of property. It's not implementing any sort of mandatory requirements. It's a guidance document that's intended to shape requiring mandatory documents like the zoning ordinance, the subdivision and land development ordinance, the stormwater management ordinance, things like that. So this is, I don't want to say just a planning document because it's really extensive and impactful, but it is not binding on anything. It's just used to inform those additional planning documents, which are binding. The ordinances are what's binding. Just for the record, yeah.
Any further comments? Okay, hearing none. I want to thank you, Gina, for all your extensive research into this and the 2-year accomplishment. It was not unnoticed in our planning commission. Very insightful. I know that some people think we didn't get enough participation, but I think Joan has shown us that we had quite a bit of participation compared to every other community. Now, Beaver County has always been slow about responding. They don't get back to us in our